Isaac's Business English, lección 36, nivel 1, unidad 6, professions vocabulary. Jobs. What do they do? What do they do? ¿Qué hacen? Observe carefully. Repeat and memorize. Repite y memoriza. Observa la foto y memorízate la profesión o el oficio. He's an accountant. He's an accountant. He's an actor. He's an actor. She's a shop assistant. She's a shop assistant. She's a flight assistant. A flight assistant. She's a baker. She's a baker. She's an architect. She's an architect. He's a mason. He's a builder. He's a businessman. He's a businessman. She's a babysitter. She's a babysitter. He's a butcher. He's a butcher. She's a caretaker. She's a caretaker. He's a cook. He's a chef. She's a cashier. She's a cashier. They are clerks. They are clerks. She's a dentist. She's a dentist. She's a doctor. She's a doctor. He's a taxi driver. He's a taxi driver. He's a garbage collector. He's a garbage collector. He's an electrician. He's an electrician. He's an engineer. He's an engineer. He's a farmer. He's a farmer. He's a fisherman. He's a fisherman. She's a hairdresser. She's a hairdresser. He's an English teacher. He's an English teacher. She's a musician. She's a musician. He's a pilot. He's a pilot. He's a police officer. He's a police officer. They are telephone operators. They are telephone operators. He's a waiter. He's a waiter. Repite, memorízate todos los oficios y profesiones. Isaac's Business English, lección 37, nivel 1, unidad 6, professions vocabulary, profession, position. En este videoclip nos vamos a enfocar en memorizar las acciones de las profesiones y el objeto de esas acciones, que pueden ser cosas o personas. ¿Listos? Fíjense bien, voy a preguntar verbalmente what does y el oficio, do, hace. ¿Qué hace el oficio? Y también vas a repetir él hace esto. Okay, he, action, object. ¿Listos? What does an accountant do? He keeps books. He keeps books. What does an actor do? He performs. He performs. What does a shop assistant do? She helps customers. She helps customers. What does a flight assistant do? She helps passengers. She helps passengers. What does a baker do? She bakes bread and pastries. She bakes bread and pastries. What does an architect do? She designs buildings. She designs buildings. What does a mason do? He lays bricks. He lays bricks. He builds houses. He builds houses. Nota que mason es albañil y builder es constructor. A las personas que trabajan en construcción se les dice builders o masons. What does a businessman do? He runs a business. He runs a business. La palabra runs, cuando hablamos de negocios, significa que él administra un negocio. What does a babysitter do? She babysits children. She babysits children. What does a butcher do? He cuts meat. He cuts meat. What does a caretaker do? She cares for the elderly. She cares for the elderly. What does a chef do? He cooks meals. He cooks meals. Cooks, cocina, y meals son comidas. What does a cashier do? She works the register. She works the register. La caja no es cashier. La caja se dice the register. Entonces ella trabaja la caja. She rings purchases. She rings purchases. To ring purchases significa que ella cobra. Observe carefully. Please repeat. Más sobre este video en isaacsenglish.blogspot.com. Please repeat. ¿Listos? Does he keep books? Yes, he does. He keeps books. Is he an actor? Yes, he is. He's an actor. Is she an actor? No, she isn't. She is a shop assistant. Does a shop assistant keep books? No, a shop assistant doesn't keep books. A shop assistant helps customers. What does she do? She's a flight assistant. What does a flight assistant do? She helps passengers. What does she do? She's a baker. What does a baker do? A baker bakes bread. Observe carefully. Please repeat. What do you do? What do you do? What does he do? What does he do? Does he study English? Does he study English? Do you study English? Do you study English? What do you do? What do you do? Observen, en what termina con una T y esta es una flap T y do inicia con una D que es una flap D. La flap T y la flap D suenan como una R suave, por lo que what y do se unen y hay un solo sonido en what do. No es exactamente como lo debes de pronunciar, pero si estás iniciando, puedes empezar pronunciándolo de esta manera. What do, what do, what do. Los hispanos tenemos un problema cuando pronunciamos la Y en inglés. No es you, no es you, es una I latina. Suavicen la Y a una I latina. Y you, do, pareciera que es una sola palabra. Por lo que quedaría así. What do you do? Practica. What do you do? Que significa ¿a qué te dedicas? What do you do? What do you do? Ahora vamos a what does he do? De nuevo, tenemos la flap T y flap T que suenan como una R suave. Por lo que what does lo vas a decir de esta forma. What does? What does? No es la R del español, ¿no? Es una flap T, una flap D, se parece a una R. What does? Y cuando decimos he, cuando decimos does he, el sonido de la es apenitas, casi ni lo escuchas en el habla natural, ¿no? Entonces queda, what does he do? What does he do? What does he do? Practícalo, repite, what does he do? Vamos a la siguiente pregunta. Does he study English? Does he study English? De nuevo, el does he, repite, Does he. Apenas se pronuncia el sonido de la does he. Does he. Y aquí y es seguido por study. Study. Los que hablamos español tendemos a decir la E antes de la S. Pero si ustedes observan la palabra study, aquí no hay ninguna E. Entonces es nada más el sonido de la S. Por lo que es, does he study? Study, repite y practica. Study, does he study? Does he study English? Does he study English? ¿Ok? De nuevo, no es does he study, porque no hay una E antes de la S. Entonces, si dices study, corrige eso, es study. Does he study? Repite de nuevo, does he study English? Vámonos a la siguiente. Do you study English? Do you study English? En el habla natural, cuando decimos do you, se produce el sonido de la D únicamente más el you. Y a veces inclusive se puede escuchar como ya. Entonces es do you study English? Nada más el sonido de la D, no es do you. Es nada más el sonido de la D. Do you, y de nuevo el study. No pronuncies la E antes de la S. Únicamente la S. Do you study English? Do you study English? Repite. Do you study English? Bueno, vamos a practicarlas de nuevo. Y repite después de mí. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? What does he do? What does he do? What does he do? Does he study English? Does he study English? Does he study English? Does he study English? Do you study English? Do you study English? Do you study English? Do you study English?